today we're going to talk about the Parasha and the Haftarah as we've decided we're doing this year, and alongside that, I hope you've noticed so far that we kind of have additional subjects all related to different, sometimes discussing. Last week we've talked about the emblem of the state of Israel. Before that we've talked about some places and so forth. So I kind of get other peripheral subjects that are related to the time or relevant otherwise. So today, what you've mentioned, what you said, Chris, is somewhat what we're going to talk about, and that is Jewish Christmas and other light festivals around this time of the year, and the connection. So that's after we talk about the Parasha and the Haftarah. So we have the Parasha Vayigash and the Haftarah of Vayigash. We see Judah's plea to protect Benjamin from Joseph, really, whom he doesn't recognize as being Joseph, obviously, and his moral transformation, so to speak, from the point that he is suggesting to sell Joseph to slavery to the point that he is offering himself to be a slave in order to save Benjamin. Right? So remember, Joseph and Benjamin have the same status in regards to Judah. In both cases, they are his half-brothers related to him on his father's side, but from a different mother. When there is a strife between the two mothers, the names that are given, to the extent that the names that are given to the children are related to that struggle between the sisters. Okay, just one example is Naphtali. Okay, the son of Bilhah, the maidservant of Rachel. Naftulei Elohim niftalti im achoti gam yecholti. I have struggled with my sister, the godly twirling struggles, okay, if you will. In Hebrew, Naftulei Elohim, she's using the word Elohim to describe how intense these struggles are between her and her sister. In Hebrew, the word Elohim, not just in Hebrew, in Arabic as well, can reflect the intensity of something. So that intense struggle between the sisters is reflected in the next generation, mainly by the selling of Joseph to slavery by his siblings, by his brothers. And then that transformation that we see of Judah from selling his brother to slavery to offering himself as a slave to save his brother from slavery. So that's the parasha, and then the Haftarah continues alongside that theme of Judah and Joseph, from the struggle and unity between the two brothers to the struggle and unity between the two kingdoms representing the brothers. Okay, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Then again, as more of the niche, we'll talk about this season and the story of this season in Jewish sources and Jewish practices. So that's the game plan for today. So without further ado, let's start with the reading from the weekly portion, Vayigash. We'll use it also to talk about biblical Hebrew grammar and style, and biblical commentary. I know that Betsy wrote to me that she won't be able to make it. Yeah.
I'll be leaving at 7 hour from now.
Yep. So, but it will be recorded. So, Yeah. Let's see this.
I'll start.
Chris, go ahead. Your microphone
Yeah.
is already open.
Yigash elav Yehuda Bayomer di Adoni Daberna av Daka Davar Baazne Adoni Baal Yichar Apka Ba'av Deka Ki Ka Moka Ka Far O. Then Judah approached him. Who's the him? Oh,
Elav is Joseph. It's not mentioned here, but it is Joseph. In the previous week, okay, we finished the weekly portion with Joseph talking to them after arresting them and accusing them
okay. So
of
the him
stealing the cup, finding the cup in the sack of Benjamin.
Okay.
Okay.
So then Judah approached him, that's Joseph, and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant speak a word in my lord's ears, and do not let your anger burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh."
Right. So, as far as the very interesting tone of the text and what can knowing more about biblical Hebrew help us achieve from this verse is, first of all, note the very servile tone that is reflected by the way Judah is speaking to Joseph. Be Adoni. Be, that is in me, literally. Right? We have here the bet preposition, which oftentimes means in, inside, other uses as well. With, among, with a first person common singular pronominal suffix, be, with the e, we can see that first person pronominal suffix Adoni, first person common singular, or Adoni, Adoni, okay, referring back to Judah and presenting that obsequious, servile tone. My master, my master. We can see the second person masculine singular pronominal suffix presented in these four words. Avdecha, your, the cha at the end of the word, your masculine singular. Second person masculine singular pronominal suffix with the word eved, servant. You can see that the basic form of the word may change when adding to it a pronominal suffix, reflecting, by the way, oftentimes the original form of the word in maybe even a proto-Hebrew state. So the word that we know from standard biblical Hebrew as eved in the earlier stage was something like abd. Abd. You can see that reflected here in the form that has the pronominal suffix. So that's as far as the historical development of the form of the word. Abd, abed, ebed, or eved, and abd, and reflected again when we see that pronominal suffix, avdecha. This abd is still reflected in names such as Abdallah. You know it from Arabic, right? So avdecha, apecha, avdecha, and chamocha. What's the difference? Why do we see a difference between these two, avdecha and avdecha, why do we have a difference in the vowel pointing here and here? Don't be shy, guys.
Because of the
Well,
preposition.
it could be because of that bait.
So you both suggested
prefix.
the preposition, but this is an interesting suggestion, yet not accurate one.
Oh.
The reason for the difference is the position of the word in the sentence. Okay? Sometimes, whichever language we're speaking, we might pronounce the last word of a sentence in a way that would be slightly different than other words, with a different intonation, to let the listeners know that we are about to finish that sentence or that clause. You noted that I just did that over the last few sentences. Okay? So basically, avdecha with a penultimate accent, as opposed to avdecha with an ultimate accent, putting the accent on the second to last syllable is a very common phenomenon in Hebrew when you have a certain word at the end of a clause. Okay? A posal form. Okay? When we have an end, a posal form, one of those changes that are very common is the shifting of the accent to the second to last syllable and causing the segol instead of the shiva. So avdecha hayafe, avdecha Yosef, avdecha Yehuda, because it's not the end of the sentence. Al yichar apecha be'avdecha, let your face not burn against your servant. So that's a posal form. For you are like Pharaoh, ki chamocha kefaro. You can see the kaf of comparing two elements. In Hebrew, one of the ways of comparing two elements is using the kaf of the similarity twice. Okay? That's chamocha kefaro. You are yourself, your likeness, okay, is like the likeness of Pharaoh. You are like Pharaoh. Comparing between the two. So the overall tone here, using the word Adoni, Adoni, Avdecha, Avdecha, you are like Pharaoh. In one word, servile. I'm your servant, you are my master, you are like Pharaoh. Alongside that, we can see the verb Vayigash. You can see the Vayikol verbs Vayigash and Vayomer. Vayikol verbs, presenting the narrative in Hebrew, and transitioning from the narrative to the direct speech by using the verb Vayomer. We can see the verb Vayigash, Kal Vayitol, Nun Gimel Shin, okay, third person masculine singular, Kal Vayitol, denoting intentional approach, used also for confrontation, okay, for war sometimes. This is why the rabbis have taken this text and utterly transitioned the meaning behind it, giving it a very, very confrontational meaning. They even portray this as a bull and a lion fighting. Okay? And usually they say the lion overpowers the bull, but here the two are fighting. The bull being Joseph and the lion being Judah. Okay, with their emblematic animals, spirit animals of Judah and Joseph, if you will. So the rabbis have noted Vayigash, which is a word used for confrontation, intercession, prayer as well, as opposed to the politeness, even servile tone of the text. Be Adoni, Adoni, Avdecha, Avdecha, Chamocha Kefaro. And that's the opening verse of the weekly portion, Vayigash. Again, the marking the suggestion of Judah to become a servant instead of Benjamin, continuing that transition, that transformation that we see over the last few chapters, from the one who suggests to sell Joseph to the one who suggests becoming a servant in order to save Joseph. So let's see this verse from Genesis 37, not this weekly portion, but recent weekly portion, in order to see that transition, transformation of Judah in regards to the relationship with his brother Joseph. Guys, and yes, I see your hand. Go ahead.
ויאמר יהודה אל אחיו, מה בצע כי נהרוג את אחינו וכיזינו את דמו. לכו ונמכרנו לאיש מעלים בידנו אל תהי בו, כי אחינו בשרנו הוא.
Right. Yachinu v'sarenu hu. And the last two words.
וישמעו אחיו.
Right.
Then Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain by killing our brother and covering up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers agreed.
Okay. Yeah, very practical. Listen, yeah. What could we gain from, killing him? Let's sell him. After all, he's a brother. So we stand to make the buck out of selling him. That's it's the logic of it that Judah is presenting, and his brothers listening, right? Vayishme'u, and the translation here, his brothers agreed. I think it's not a bad translation. In biblical Hebrew, Shama has to do also with agreeing. We remember that when the people answer God, Kol asher diber Adonai, everything that the Lord spoke, na'aseh v'nishma, and oftentimes translated, we shall do and we shall hear. But nishma has to do with we will not just hear, but adhere to something, do something, put ourselves under a certain obligation, under a certain under a view of understanding and adhering, doing, fulfilling. Yes.
Now, is that in the sense of an oath?
I wouldn't say it's a way to take an oath, but it's a way to agree, to concur, to adhere. Okay.
Okay.
But it's to agree, to adhere, but I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a way to take an oath in Hebrew. Right. So thank you very much for the reading. And Jerry, how are you? Can you unmute the microphone? I want to ask you a question. Let's see. First task is to unmute the microphone. I see it's already presenting to me. Oh, very good.
Very good.
There
Okay.
you go. First one you did well. How are you?
Good. I think another word for this Ishmael would be to perform a performance, contract performance, to actually execute something, to do it.
You do have it as an execution of a contract with Abraham. וישמע אברהם אל עפרון, וישקול אברהם לעפרון את הכסף אשר דיבר באוזני בני חת. Abraham heard Ephron in the sense that he agrees, he concurs, he executes the suggestion made by Ephron. So he weighed the silver that Ephron mentioned in the ears of the sons of Chet. So we do have that as an execution of something, okay? But I wouldn't say it's an oath. It's a fulfillment, it's an agreement, concurring, and so forth. Now, Jerry, first of all, how are you doing? And secondly, after hearing how are you doing, I'd like you to find in these verses at least one example of a pronominal suffix. Okay, we had the pronominal suffix in the previous verse. We saw bi, Adoni, Adoni, Avdecha, Apecha, Avdecha, Kamocha. And now we have different pronominal suffixes. And after hearing how are you doing, I'd love you to find us at least one pronominal suffix here. So let's start with how are you doing?
Well, it has been a journey. I have been pretty busy. I had purchased a farm since I last talked to you. I had came across some land that was up against my property that I own for my business. I own and operate a cemetery, and so some land came up, and so we were 6 months in trying to buy 258 acres of land right behind us. So we did that, and now we have cattle on it, and we have we're fixing up the ranch house, and so I've just been extremely busy buying different equipment for the new farm.
So next time I visit you,
you can come to the farm.
Right?
We can hee-haw. You can feed the cows. You can bring your kids over, and we could even share some bread, break some bread.
You know that I visited a student of mine back in 2016, upstate New York, and they had the family. They were almost autarkian, and in the morning it is 5 a.m. or something like that. We get up to milk the cows, and we go to the cows. I was with my brother and with them, and we're taking the cows, and he's leading the cow to the milking parlor, and I'm leading the second cow. And I was so happy with myself being a city boy. Listen, I was able to get the cow to the milk. So he said to me, listen, once the first one is going, the rest follow suit. So yeah. So this is how I learned my achievements as a cowboy were not that impressive. But next time I can try, and maybe the San Antonio cows are different.
Well, you're sure welcome to come back. I know you've been to my house once, but I've already bought another house, so right next door. So I got plenty of room now.
Sure. Next time, though, I'm coming with a bunch, with the whole family.
Bring the whole crew. We got plenty of land.
Right. Next time, God willing.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, now let's find the pronominal suffix.
I can find an ending. How about vanachmak karnu?
Venimkerenu. Wow.
Venimkerenu.
Right. You went with a hefty one, right? Venimkerenu laishmeelim. Nimkerenu. We shall sell him. This is definitely a pronominal suffix. Specifically, though, different than the ones we've seen so far, because this is a pronominal suffix that represents the object of a verb. Okay, So it's an object suffix marking the object of the verb. Let's sell him. Okay. Venimkerenu, that's the object suffix of the verb. We have many other pronominal suffixes as well. Echav, achinu, damo, yadenu, vo, achinu, besarenu, and echav. You can see how common these and how in Hebrew they are added as suffixes to the end of these words, and they're not separated as you would find in English. Okay, his brothers. Okay, our brother, his blood, sell him, our hand. Okay, yadenu al tehivo, in literally our hand, let our hand not be against him. Okay, in the English here more contextual, but let us not do away with him ourselves. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh. Okay, his brothers, all separate words in English, while all connected at the end of Hebrew words. So we have to bear that in mind when reading Hebrew, that Hebrew tends to be more agglutinative in that sense. Yes, Chris, you wanted to say something?
Yes, no, the sound is very muffled.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for saying. And secondly, let's see if I can do something about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1.
I can hear you clearly, Netanyahu.
Okay. Is it better?
It's good to me, personally.
Okay. So
no, you already circled it.
Okay. Oh, you wanted to mark the other pronominal suffixes, right? So that's a little bit about the original position of Judah in this sense. Mabetza kina haroget achinu. Literally, betza. Betza has to do with chipping off, cutting off, and that is chipping off a part of silver. So what? Literally, the word betza means part of a chunk of silver. Okay. Contextually, becoming gain. Okay. Anyone has ever been in a Friday night or a Shabbat dinner? I'm sure many of you have been in that experience. So there is a difference between Ashkenazi Jews and non-Ashkenazi Jews when it comes to Shabbat dinner. You know that we bless, we make a blessing on the cup of wine, and then over the bread, usually a challah. What do you do after you finish the blessing on the challah? You make the blessing. So if you're Ashkenazi Jew and you preserve the ways of your father, you take a knife, usually a knife that is for that purpose and that purpose alone, and you cut the challah of Shabbat. You make a knife. People make nice knives. It says for Shabbat with stuff like that. That's how my grandfather used to do it. That's how my father used to do it. And my father had his work cut out for him because he had 10 kids. So even cutting the bread for 10 kids is already half a day job. In any case, if you are non-Ashkenazi, what do? Anyone knows the difference? How do non-Ashkenazi Jews deal with the bread after blessing it on Shabbat?
Yeah,
you tear it with your hands.
They tear it and they can throw it.
Mm-hmm.
They throw it sometimes.
Right, they tear it and oftentimes throw it. I want to tell you that even though all my ancestors are Ashkenazi, Israeli Jews are drifting towards the non-Ashkenazi traditions oftentimes. Okay, so you can find me doing either. Okay, God willing, we can demonstrate both October 2026 when we make a grand tour of Israel. Okay, so that's the difference. And why am I mentioning it? Because the verb that is used for cutting the challah with either with your hands or your knife is livtoa. It's the same verb, to cut off the challah. Okay, it's a verb that you would find only in these contexts of gain, usually in a context of kind of ill-gotten gains that are made not in a very nice way. So beta, and even, someone who is greedy, ta'ev beta, or to cut off the challah for Shabbat, livtoa. So that's the only two contexts that I can think of that you would use this verb in Hebrew. Yeah. So cutting bread or cutting that old, nobody remembers that context, piece of silver, breaking it. Nobody knows that every day. People know the word betza as ill-gotten gains or gains, but the connection between the two is oftentimes lost. Now, the transition of Judah from the one offering to sell Joseph to the one offering himself as a servant. Let's read this, guys. Anyone wants to read this verse? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Come on, everyone take a turn. There's plenty of reading for everybody.
I don't know. Everyone compete for reading because I don't know how much reading.
Okay, I'll read it.
Go ahead, Rosalind. How are you?
I am well, thank God.
Okay, very good.
V'yata yeshevna avdecha tachat hana'ar eved ladoni. V'hana'ar ya'al im echav. Now therefore please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my lord, and let the boy go up with his brothers.
Right. I think it was Anne or Ulrike who mentioned when we've talked about Jacob speaking with Joseph and with Esau and saying Im Lavan Galti, reminding us what is correct in biblical Hebrew, that the verb for sojourning or temporary residence is related to the verb lagur. And here, as opposed to that im Lavan Galti, I have temporarily resided with Laban, here Judah is offering yeshevna, which means I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna say even, right? Remain permanently. And was it you?
No,
No,
that was not there. That must have been Ulrike.
Ulrike, was it you?
Yes, it was me.
Yeah, I remember the German accent. You'll forgive me for not remembering which one. Yeah.
It was about being a girl in another land and stay in the own customs.
Right. Im Lavan Galti va'echal adat. And now you can see how the other side of the same equation works. Here, when Judah says, Yeshevna avdecha tachat hanar, Judah is saying, I am volunteering to remain, possibly even permanently, rather than temporarily reside. He doesn't say Yagurna avdecha tachat hanar. Rather, he says Yeshevna avdecha tachat hanar. Okay, so being attentive to the use of biblical Hebrew. By the way, in contrast to modern Hebrew, a modern Hebrew speaker would usually not register with a modern Hebrew speaker. This would not register because in modern Hebrew we don't clearly make that distinction. The way you present the place of residence in modern Hebrew is by using the verb gar. If someone asked me, where do I live? He would ask me, Efa ata gar? And I would say, Ani gar begedera or bigdera. Okay, I live in Gedera. I wouldn't use the word yeshev at all, unless I'm talking about physical sitting. Okay? Or serving time in prison. Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm saying Ani Yoshev Bekele Shesh, which is kind of it's a military prison, it's a soldier's song. Ani Yoshev Bekele Shesh, I am serving time at prison number 6. Okay, and everybody understands Yoshev in that context means serves time. Okay, but you don't talk about residing anywhere by using the verb yashav. Okay, yeah. Maybe I should find this song for you. Okay. ועתה ישב נעבדך תחת הנער עבד לאדוני, so we can see עבדך that we had earlier, אדוני that we had earlier, והנער יעל עם אחיו, and let the boy go up. Ya'al is a jussive form. Okay. It means it's not indicative. It's not a way to describe a verb, but a request. It's a way to express one's volition towards the action. So he wants that the boy should go up. Okay, here presented in English, let the boy go up.
Yeah.
Ya'al im echav, pronominal suffix again, echav. Very good. So we see that full transition moving from selling his brother, because he's his brother, he should make the money out of selling him. You know, if we kill him, we gain nothing. And why should someone else sell him? He's our brother, flesh and blood. So we should at least make a buck. We should be the ones making the buck out of selling him. And now he's suggesting himself as a permanent replacement, as a servant, as a slave, instead of Benjamin. So it's not exactly, you cannot cross the same river twice. This is what they say. But here he is crossing a very similar river in the opposite direction. Okay. And this is the definition of repentance according to Maimonides and according to Jewish tradition. When you are presented with similar circumstances and you choose to do the right thing now, as opposed to what you did earlier. So this is the weekly portion, and Joseph revealing his true identity to his brothers. Let's see this. Anyone? Anne, did you read already?
Yeah, I read already, but I'm not going to read all of this.
No, we'll divide it. You have.
I'll start.
Okay, and then Frank, you'll read the second verse. Go ahead.
All right. ולא יכול יוסף להתאפק, להתאפק, oh sorry, yes. לכל הניצבים עליו ויקרא הוציאו כל איש מעלה ולא אמר איש איתו בהתוודע יוזף אל אחיו, his brother. Yeah.
Right. And could you read in English?
Yeah. Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So there was no one else about when Joseph made himself known to his brothers.
Right.
Wow, what a moment, huh?
What a moment. And what leads to this moment is exactly what we've described so far. The repentance of Judah, this moral growth from this radical moral transformation, this radical repentance, and not just repentance in the sense of remorse, but presented, maybe even manipulated to be in a very similar position by Joseph, and put to the test by Joseph, and taking a very different approach, a radically different approach, 180 degrees approach by Judah, unlocks Joseph's emotional release and reaction and revelation to his brothers. Okay? And we can see the extent of that revelation in the following verses. Chris, your hand was up, or
I got it. Not no.
Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Vayiten et kolo bivhi vayishmeu Mitzrayim vayishma beit Paro. Okay, so his sobs were so loud that the Egyptians could hear, and so the news reached Paro's palace.
Okay. Vayishmeu Mitzrayim, vayishma beit Paro. So first of all, vayiten, vayishmeu, vayishma, vayitol verbs. It makes it very easy to read biblical prose. First of all, because it is usually short sentences, and they usually start with vayitol verbs. So the segmentation is easier. It's also easy because we can use the te'amim that oftentimes instruct where we should pause. Okay, so the division is very clear. Vayiten et kolo bivchi, vayishmeu Mitzrayim, vayishma beit Paro. Very short, each of these clauses, sentences. You can see vayishma beit Paro. This is metonymous use. Obviously, the house of Pharaoh does not have the ability to hear anything, being that it is an inanimate object, a house. But metonymous, this is a metonym, this is reflecting the people in the administration of Pharaoh, pretty much like the White House. Okay? When people talk about the White House response was this and that, or Downing 10, or whichever, whichever.
Didn't Joshua say, "Me and my house will serve the Lord"?
Right. Ani uveiti na'avod et Adonai, the end of Joshua, one of the most courageous declaration of any Jewish educator ever. I think that if the parents would hear any Jewish teacher in any Jewish academy saying to his students, listen, you can worship idols. Me and my family are going to stick to Judaism. He would be fired that instance, you know. As far as I'm concerned, go worship foreign gods. I'm going to stick to Judaism. So Joshua is very, very courageous saying that. They say this is the last time that, you know, there was an option to leave Judaism like that. But Ani Uveiti here represents his family, which is similar. Okay, here Bet Paro, maybe not just the family of Pharaoh, but in the broader sense of the palace, the administration, all of the people, the important people. Yes, Anne, you wanted.
Why would a teacher be fired for saying something like that?
Because parents are more, how shall I put it? They're much more hesitant about presenting the children with the option to go on a direction that is considered to be radically different than what they would choose. Would you like the educator in a school in your community to say, listen, it is super legitimate if you decide to become idol worshippers. I'm going to stick to my values. I think that ideological communities, religious communities, usually try to encourage the next generation to follow suit and not discourage them like Joshua does in those verses. He says, no, you cannot stick to the Lord, you know, it's too difficult. Maybe it's reverse psychology, but just taking that route is very, very courageous, very out of the box.
Okay.
Wouldn't you say?
I have to think about it. I have to analyze it a little bit better, because
right, he says you cannot follow the Lord. He's vengeful. He's kind of discouraging them from following the Lord. He says, yeah, it's okay. You can, you know, do whatever you do, and I and my house will follow the Lord. And his reverse psychology possibly works nicely because everybody declares their fidelity to the Lord.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Maureen.
Can I read?
Yeah, your hand is up.
Please, can I read?
Sure.
ויאמר יוסף אל אחיו, אני יוסף, עוד
העוד אבי חי?
הלא יקלו עיקר
לענות אותו
ונבהלו
מפניו.
And Joseph said to his brothers, I'm Joseph. Is my father still well? But his brothers could not answer him, so dumbfounded were they on account of him. I think we're picking up an echo from someone else's microphone. Comes in after you speak.
Let's see. Let's see if I can mute everybody. I'm muting everybody, and is it better now? I can try a different microphone. I'll try a different microphone myself. Let's see if it improves or, God forbid, the other way around. How about this way? Can you hear me now? Is it better or worse?
When you muted everyone, it was much better.
Okay, and now is it better when I speak? Yes, okay.
I hear you clearly.
Come again, Ulrike, you were saying?
I hear you clearly now.
Okay, clearly not. Okay, so let's stick to this microphone. I thought the other one would be all right. Okay, never mind. Okay, so ויאמר יוסף אל אחיו, אני יוסף, העוד אבי חי. Okay, ולא יכלו אחיו לענות אותו כי נבהלו מפניו. So it starts with him crying and they don't know why. Okay, and now he's saying, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? Remember that they talked about their father and how he's old and how, you know, he now says, is he still alive? And they don't know what's going to happen now because they are intimidated. They don't know.
Well,
Because they sold him to slavery, and now he is the man with the power. He can do whatever he wants to them. Okay, so they are understandably afraid.
I see two things here, Nathaniel.
Go ahead.
One is that he threw out his translator or interpreter, threw him out of the house. No Egyptians there, and then he's speaking to them in their language.
Yeah, right. Definitely, this is part of it. This is how, you know, they did not recognize him by his looks so far. So the fact that he is changing the language, right? He takes out anyone else is gone, and he's speaking directly to them. So he's probably speaking their language, speaking something that would be akin to biblical Hebrew. Okay, and they could not answer. Now, a little bit about the grammar. We have here lehit apek and behit vada. Both of them are part of which binyan, guys?
Hitpalel.
That he feel?
Hitpa'el. Both of these are hitpa'el verbs. Okay. And the uses of the hitpa'el, I see people taking out their charts. Very nice. Hitpa'el, hitapek, and behit vada. Both of these are infinitive forms. Okay. Lehit apek and behit vada, both of these are prefixed by prepositions. The lamed preposition in lehit apek, very common preposition in Hebrew. Just here we have lechol alongside lehit apek, and la'anot also with the lamed preposition. And behit vada, we have the bet preposition, which we've seen earlier today, but we also have here also bivchi. Okay, just randomly you can see that these are quite common prepositions. Lehit apek, we have a reflexive sense of restrainment. Okay, and behit vada, we have a reflexive sense of self-disclosure. Okay, letting them know. Making oneself known or restraining oneself. You can see the self, the reflexive aspect of these actions. One of the uses of the hitpa'el is obviously that reflexive tone. So we have here lehit apek and behit vada. Okay, and Joseph is kind of calming them down, not taking vengeance, but rather telling them that while they might think that this is their doing, it's actually God's doing what we have here. And okay, let's see this verse. Lynn, would you like to read?
Okay. Ve'ata lo atam shelachtem oti hina ki ha'elohim vaisimeni le'av le'faro ul adon lechol beto u'moshel bechol eretz Mitzrayim. So it was not you who sent me here, but God, who has made me a father to Pharaoh, Lord of all his household and ruler over the whole land of Egypt.
Right. A father to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Okay. A very interesting way of saying, I'm in charge of everything. Okay. A father to Pharaoh, Adon lechol beito umoshel bechol eretz Mitzrayim. Note the lamed preposition, vaisimeni le, combining the verb of the root sin yod mem. Okay. And the lamed preposition of sam le, haya le. Okay. That is to become, to be made something. So that something is represented by the lamed. You can see that in the case of the third element here, we have Av, Adon, and Moshel. All of these are things that Joseph becomes by God. Okay, God sent me, and He made me this. He made me that. He made me this. Okay. The third element is not marked by the lamed preposition. We have great flexibility in Hebrew in regards to using that preposition or not, especially when previously it is already used. So he made me this, that, and the other. He made me 1, 2, 3. So here you can see that 1 and 2 are prefixed with a lamed preposition, while 3 is not. This is common. Okay. Vaisimeni le'av lefaro le'adon lechol beito. By the way, note how the lamed is used differently. Vaisimeni le'av lefaro. He made me father to Pharaoh. In the Hebrew, we use the same preposition for both. Like the adage, the Bible is written for you, but not to you. Have you heard that in the past? Very good. So in Hebrew, it is hard in biblical Hebrew to distinguish the two. Yes, there are ways of saying it in biblical Hebrew, but 4 and 2 can be reflected by the lamed preposition in both cases. Vaisimeni le'av lefaro ul adon lechol beito. And again, the third one is different in both senses. First of all, we don't have the lamed preposition here. And secondly, we don't have the lamed preposition here. Umoshel bechol eretz Mitzrayim. So to speak, breaking the pattern in both ways. Okay? It could have been ul moshel be lechol eretz Mitzrayim. Yeah, could have been. Okay, so we've dealt with the weekly portion, now the connection to the Haftarah. And the Haftarah is amazing. I love this Haftarah. These chapters from Ezekiel are obviously very, very moving. And this Haftarah talks about two. Here I wrote sticks, but it's unclear what are we talking about. Sticks, branches. Some have even suggested plates of wood, but sticks is not a bad translation. Okay, let's see this very, very moving Haftarah, which again marks the unity of the nations rather than the unity, the reconciliation of the brothers, developing into the reconciliations of the nations. Remember that when Ezekiel is prophesying, just to give us a bit of a political setting, the kingdom of Joseph, the kingdom of Israel, is already long gone. It was exiled by the Assyrians 721, 720, okay? And Ezekiel is prophesying it already more than around 120 more years later. So the kingdom of Joseph is already gone. And we're talking about the reunification of the two as a prophecy of redemption. Yes, I saw a hand. Okay. Don, would you like to read?
I will go ahead and give it a good try.
Very good.
Vehata ven Adam chach lech etz
Lecha,
ahad
kach lecha etz echad.
at echad u katov alev
Alav,
alav li hauda le livne Yisrael have Rav Ulkoch Etz Adam Ahad. I'm sorry,
kach etz echad, right?
Echad. Oh, it's all of this. Oh goodness. U Katov Lev Li Yosef Le Yosef Etz Haf Re'im Ve'kol Beit Israel Rav. Oh, okay. And you, O mortal, take a stick and write on it of Judah and the Israelites associated with him, and take another stick and write on it of Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel associated with him.
Okay. So we have one stick or one branch or one tablet, even as I said, suggested, and write upon it to Judah and to the children of Israel, and the other one to Joseph, to Ephraim, and to all of the house of Israel. It's associated with him. Again, you can see the וכתוב עליו ליהודה ולבני ישראל, ליוסף, and you can see that the preposition is absent from ulchol bet Yisrael chaverav, that flexibility that we've talked about. You would have expected, if we're talking about the design of these two, uchtov alav, after all, we have two branches that are treated fairly similar way. Take one stick or one branch and take one branch. Okay, in English we would say take one and take another, or take the in Hebrew you can say take one and take one. Okay, that's one and the other, and write upon it Lihuda ve'livnei Israel. Here leYosef ve'chol bet Yisrael. Is there a difference between the two? I'm sure you'll find commentaries that will explain. Obviously, there is a difference, and here is the difference. As in a broader sense, there is great flexibility. Okay, in rabbinic commentary, one of the most interesting concepts of rabbinic commentary is what was coined by scholars as omnisignificance. There is no detail in the text, minute as it may be, that has no significance, that is just arbitrary. Okay, because it's a sacred text, because it is divinely ordained, rabbinic, especially midrashic commentaries hold this concept of omnisignificance, as opposed to it's not that there are no other voices in the community of commentators of the Bible. There is a very wide school of commentators that express the human-like language of Torah, saying Dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. The Torah speaks in the way people speak, and that is kind of a different tone than the omnisignificance approach. Another, Don, do you want to ask a question?
I do. This is a prophecy of the unification of Judah with what? The lost tribes that have been missing for...
Right, the two kingdoms, right? The kingdom of Judah, which is still in its last days, if you will. Okay. And the kingdom of Israel, which is long gone. Okay. Note something very, very interesting here that is related to the local dialect of Hebrew in biblical times. Remember, exactly as you have dialects in every other language, especially before BBC or standardized English for English speakers, or in England, or radio and television in each country, oftentimes standardizing the different local dialects. Okay, even if you live in, let's say, rural Alabama, you're watching the same Fox News or CNN, so you are exposed to the same kind of English as someone in New York, where a dialectic, different dialects of English that existed in separation are kind of standardized by journalism, be that written journalism, which is less effective in that sense, and radio, and later on television, and today TikTok or whatever works. So one of the points that I want to make, guys, here is that dialectal difference in Hebrew between Northern Hebrew and Southern Hebrew, between the Hebrew that was spoken in the kingdom of Israel and the Hebrew that was spoken in the northern kingdom, and how it is intentionally used by the prophet here. Do you see how we have two imperatives, both of them meaning take? Kach, masculine, singular, imperative. And lekach, masculine, singular, imperative. But they are different. In the first one, we have the lamed dropping, pretty much like the peinun verbs and other weak verbs of Hebrew, who are losing the first root letter in the masculine, in the form of the imperative. Okay, that's the standard biblical Hebrew. Kach. That's the regular way of biblical Hebrew saying take in the masculine singular. But with the tree that is dedicated to the northern kingdom, to the kingdom of Israel, we have a different form of the imperative. This is the form of the imperative that was used in Israeli Hebrew or Northern Hebrew. How do we know that? We know that from the Book of Kings and story of Eliyahu. We know that from extra biblical sources in comparison to Phoenician. But this is the northern. This is most probably the northern way of saying take. So think about him speaking in English accent when talking about England, and American accent talking about America. Something like that, akin to that. We don't hear that accent, but we can, in this case, glean that understanding by using a different form in the writing. Yes, Don.
Now, in looking at this, could that be translated and take a stick one and take a stick one?
It could be, but nobody, depends what is the purpose of your translation. Generally speaking, that would be a bad translation, in my opinion. Let me say why. Because the modifier and the modified in Hebrew are reversed in English. So the normative way, the standard way of saying this in biblical Hebrew is etz echad, exactly as you would see, for instance, in the sacrifices that are offered in the temple. Parim shiva, elim shisha. You have the object and then the number. Okay. And on the day of the Sabbath, you shall sacrifice 3 this, or on the celebration, you first have the animal and then the number. That's the regular way of doing it in biblical Hebrew. So if you use an awkward English syntax to keep the syntax of the Hebrew, the English reader might get the idea that there is something outstanding in the Hebrew. It really depends what are the goals of your translation. Okay, so it's a technical question that goes back to a strategic decision you have to make when you translate. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So that's the prophecy, and I will read this. This is a bit long, and I want us to get some time to talk about Jewish Christmas, if you will. Okay, as promised. Vedaber alehem, and speak unto them. Ko amar Adonai Elohim. Thus says the Lord God. Note Elohim here with a vowel pointing. Okay, this is how we know it should be read Elohim and not Adonai, right? Ko amar Adonai Elohim. Thus says the Lord God. Hine ani lokeach et bnei Yisrael miben hagoyim asher halchu sham. Behold, I am taking the sons of Israel from among the nations where they have gone. V'kibatzti otam misaviv, v'heveti otam el admatam. And I will gather them from around, and I shall bring them to their land. Ve'asiti otam legoy echad ba'aretz beharei Yisrael, umelech echad yeh lechulam lemelech. And I shall make them into, remember we had Vaisimeni le'av. Now, ve'asiti otam legoy echad. I shall make them into one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel. Umelech echad yeh lechulam lemelech. And one king shall be a king over all of them. Okay? So, Melech Echad, right? We had Etz Echad, Goy Echad, Melech Echad. Okay, you see that the deciphering of the prophecy of these 2 branches, 2:6. Velo yehiyu od lishnei goyim. And they shall no more, never again be 2 different nations. Velo yechatzu od lishtei mamlachot od. And never again shall they be 2 kingdoms ever again. Okay? Note, velo yu od, velo yechatzu od lishtei mamlachot od. Never again, never again. Lo yihiyu od, lo yechatzu od. Okay, never again. Okay, so the original never again is not about the struggles that we have with our outer enemies, but rather with our disunity. Okay, and believe you me, guys, Jews are very big on disunity. This is something we have unfortunately ingrained in our it's not, you know, not doing this disunity is unfortunately against the grain, but we have to work on it. Okay, what Judah and Joseph achieved emotionally, God is promising us historically and nationally. Okay,
Amen.
and so the unity of Judah and Joseph through their own responsibility, if you will, is part of the divine redemption. Okay, so the two brothers that successfully become one again, the two tribes, the two kingdoms that shall become one people. Yes, Don?
Yes, but when you get unified, you are undefeatable.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so, indeed.
I think this also illustrates the unity between the house of Joseph, the house of David, between David and Jonathan. I think that unanimity that they had to each other, I think that's a good illustration of being
It's a good
united.
illustration indeed, but it didn't work out. So you see, Jonathan is the only one. Michal also, right? She marries David, and she prefers David's interest over that of her own father and brother, theoretically. So Michal as well, but even Michal has no children. So what I think that David realizes what you're saying, Jerome, and instead of fighting against Saul, David is trying to create his kingship as a succession of Saul. You know, by keeping, theoretically trying to keep his men and trying to keep his family and so forth, and not going against him, not taking the opportunity of killing him in the opportunities that he does have, and his men are even angry at him for not seizing the opportunity. So David, I think, is listening to what you're saying, but the history of Israel, not as much. Yeah. So yeah, Jewish Christmas. So we note that different cultures across different cultures have celebrations inspired by and centered around light, renewal, hope at the darkest period of the year. Okay, and last time we've talked about Hanukkah. We have Christmas in Christian tradition. This week, the Persians celebrated the Yalda night. And if you recognize the word Yalda as related to the Hebrew Yeled, you're not mistaken. The renewal, the reborning. Yule, Saturnalia, Sol Invictus, all of these celebrations, again, Hanukkah with persisting around the time of the shortest days of the year, okay, and celebrating the light of the Chanukiah, Saturnalia, and Sol Invictus in the Roman world around the solstice, the winter solstice, and the fire, the candles, the evergreen trees of Northern European cultures. So all of these are related, okay? And the question was Jesus born on Christmas or not is I think I've heard different opinions. Again, you can it would be not so pleasant to sleep outside in Bethlehem at this time of the year, but if you don't have any choice, I don't know, maybe you do that. But I wanted to bring not a very common, not a very commonly known midrash mentioned in the Talmud about the origin of these light festivals. I think that the rabbis have noted that different cultures have different celebrations around this time, and they have kind of represented that in their view, tracing the origin of the different celebrations to Adam, who is the first man. The Hebrew word Adam represents humanity. And this is written in Rabbinic Hebrew, so I will skip to the English. And let's see, this, anyone, guys here, you don't have to worry about Hebrew. We have English, so you're more than welcome to read this in English. Anyone who didn't get to read, who wants to read? So Jerry, you get. I told you should work for the radio as well. Now that you have a big farm, maybe you should have a radio station to anyone on the farm. Yeah, but you have to unmute the microphone, otherwise.
Okay. Hana Bar Rava says, Kalinda is the 8 days after the winter solstice, and Saturnalia is the 8 days before the winter solstice, and your Medamonic is after and before you have encompassed me.
Yeah,
Psalms 139:5.
Yeah, Achor v'kedem tzartani. Yeah, it's a way of remembering it. Okay, the sages taught. Now the story about the origin story of all of these winter celebrations. Go ahead.
When Adam, the first man, saw the day was progressively diminishing, he said, "Woe is me. Maybe it is because I messed up that the world is darkening around me and returning to chaos and disorder."
You can
and
skip the
and this is the death that was sentenced upon me from heaven.
Right. So Adam, think about it. Adam first time witnesses the diminishing daylight. So Adam says, okay, it's going to end with everything darkening. If you think linearly, yesterday we had 12 hours of light, 12-hour darkness. Today, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. Says, okay, the world is going back to darkness, to the chaos of creation because of what I did. Okay, surprisingly, people think the world is centered around what they did, and think people are like even today, right?
He arose and spent 8 days in fasting and in prayer, and when he saw the winter solstice, he saw the days was progressively lengthening, he said, "It is the way of the world." And he went and observed a festival for 8 days. The next year, he observed these and those as the days of festivities. He, Adam, established them for the sake of heaven, but they, in later generations, established them for the sake of star worship.
Right. So basically, the rabbis are tracing all of these light festivals think about it, including Hanukkah, which they had complicated relations with, to the time of Adam, saying this is a time where the light is most required, and with the solstice, the days lengthening. Okay, this is taken from the Talmud, the Tractate of Avodah Zarah, page 8, folio A. So essentially, that's kind of the background for all of these celebrations. A little bit about the Nittelnacht. Okay, so Nittel comes from birth, right? We have prenatal care or neonatal or nativity. All of these are related to birth. Okay, and the Nittelnacht is the Yiddish for the birth night. Okay, that is the way Ashkenazi Jews, because Ashkenazi Jews were living among Christians in Europe, marked Christmas. Okay, Christmas Eve. Yes, Anne?
Well, I spoke to a friend, a Jewish friend. I told her about this. She didn't know about Mitternacht at all, and it seems that it's Orthodox custom.
Yes. Remember,
mainly-
up until 200 years ago, everybody were traditional.
Mainly in the eastern parts of Europe.
Yes, because in the eastern part of Europe, up until 100 years ago, everybody were traditional, roughly. Up until the beginning of the 20th century, roughly. All of the processes that happened during the 18th century in Germany and in Austro-Hungary happened 100 years later in Eastern Europe. So many of those traditions that were omni-Jewish European, okay, they were general Jewish European traditions up until the 18th century, changed for Jews in Western Europe during the 18th century and definitely the 19th century, while in Eastern Europe, these traditions kept on for at least 100 years later as a general tradition and were kept by orthodoxy, as the name suggests, sticking to the ways of their forefathers, even in later periods, including today. So what your friend said is correct, but it has a historical context to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Remember that the Jews in Western Europe were, and again, the context is the fact that the Jews in Western Europe were given their rights, to so to speak, much earlier, with Joseph II and with Napoleon and with Prussia, while in the East it happens much later. So certain processes that we see in the 18th century, we see in the 19th century in Eastern Europe. Okay.
In America, they have added Chinese food restaurant knock.
That's correct. That's the next slide. Okay. So the definition of a great question is a question for which you have a slide as a lecturer. So that's the definition of a great question. Okay. Yeah, this is the common practice of anyone giving a lecture. That's a great question. How do you know? I have a slide for it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Rosalind.
So Hanukkah starts on the 25th of Nisan.
Of Kislev, you mean?
Kislev. Sorry, my brain. It's an old brain. Christmas is on the 25th of December.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a relationship that they picked the 25th?
I don't think so. I don't think there is a relations between the two. It takes a much deeper dive into the history of each. I don't think there is a connection between the two. Listen, every week someone wins the lottery. Okay, in the sense that unlikely similarities or events do happen every week. So it's very unlikely that I would win. It's $1.7 billion now in America. I've heard, right, the Christmas lottery or something. It is super unlikely for me to win because I didn't, I never buy these things. But let's say I would have bought. It would be very highly unlikely for me to win, but someone's gonna win. If not this, the next one, and so forth. So I don't know anything about it, and to the extent that I do know about the history of these, I don't think that they are related. Anyway, this is the Nidl is a night where you don't study Torah. By the way, when do you celebrate the Nidl? Amazingly, is related to which Christians you have around you. This is the only Jewish event that is determined by the Christians around you, because if you're the Goyim, if the non-Jews, the Gentiles around you follow the Julian calendar, you mark the Nitl in the Julian calendar. And if they follow the Gregorian calendar, you do the Nitl of the Gregorian calendar. So there you have a Jewish, I wouldn't say holiday, but a Jewish calendar event determined by the division between Christian Orthodox and Christian Catholicism.
East and West.
East and West, right. So that's Nidl. You don't learn Torah. Some rabbis would play chess. The reasons differ, maybe to be sure that out of the fear of the usually drunk Gentiles around this time of the year may pogrom the communities, so they had to be watchful. There are other explanations as well. Different practices as I said, might be because of avoiding drunken mobs, blood libel accusations, attack on Jewish communities. So Nitl is kind of maybe rooted in that fear, not necessarily in theology. And then playing chess, as I said, other activities, usually not studying Torah during these nights. And again, for those of you who didn't keep Nitl according to the Gregorian calendar, you still have a chance to keep it according to the Julian one. A tradition that was mentioned is the Chinese in a movie with the American Jews, a relatively new Jewish tradition. Again, if you ask your friend, again, this is not. This has historical context as well. The Jews and the Chinese, especially in New York, Lower East Side or Brooklyn, they were kind of excluded from Christmas because it's not a celebration of the Jews, and so they had an outsider status, and the Jews went to the movies, and the only restaurants that were open were the Chinese restaurants, and it developed into a Jewish American tradition. Okay. A very interesting, very unique. Most Israeli Jews are unaware of that tradition, okay, unless they are very much familiar with Jewish American culture. But if you ask the regular Israeli about movies and Chinese on Christmas, they wouldn't know what you're saying. And for many people, this is a valid Jewish tradition. It is. It's from the 50s, 60s, maybe a little bit earlier. Of the 20th century. So it's a very new, less than 100 years tradition, but yet it is a tradition over generations in America, starting from New York and spreading to other places. So that's a new custom, a new tradition that reflects Jewish adaptability, creating meaning and community around circumstances where Jews were outsiders, and kind of shaped and forged a new tradition for them. Okay, interestingly. So that's a bit about that. Guys, as always, a pleasure. We didn't leave time for a Q&A today. Something to correct for next week. Just before we finish, I want to let you in on what we're going to do in the part of next week that is extra, that is not the weekly portion in the Haftarah. And we're going to talk, not unrelated to the Haftarah, about something. Okay, next week, from time to time I watch some of the comments that people leave on my YouTube videos, and one of the videos got these comments. The video about Yad Avshalom, the monument of Absalom. And in the video, I said it has nothing to do with Absalom, followed by it probably. So you don't know nothing. And someone else says, Earth to space. Can we get some details then? Oh, what do you mean nothing to do with Absalom? Who and when was it built? So I take these comments, and since next week we're going to talk about the succession of David, the extra part will be dealing with a memorial monument of Absalom, and we'll try to answer all of these questions, but that's for next week. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I have to run, and I'll see you. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat
Thank you.
shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.